Hello, I'm Lisa Orgler. In this video, I'll be sharing how I label a hand-drawn landscape plan in Illustrator. In a previous video, I placed an image in my title block and I scaled it to 1/4 of an inch to 1 foot. Now that I have the correct scale, I'd like to label the major elements of my landscape plan, and then I'll also label the plant materials. Before we get started, I'd like to organize my layers because I realized in my last video I forgot to create a layer for the plan that I brought in. So I'll go to my layers panel over on the right side and I will create a new layer. I'll double click in there and call it landscape plan. Sometimes it's good to make mistakes because now I can show you how you can move objects from layer to layer. So let's move this plan to the correct layer. By clicking on it, I will see that the border around it is red. And if you look in the layers panel, you will see there's a little red square. And it's telling me that right now it's on my text in title block layer, which I don't want it to be on. So I will click on this little red square and I'll drag it up into the landscape plan layer. And you can see that the box turned green and this box is now green and now it's on the correct layer. And since it's on the correct layer now, I'm going to lock the text in the title block layer, which is the text down here. And I would like to lock the layer that the plan is on also. So I'm going to create one more layer and I'm going to call this labels. And that's where we'll put all of our plants and area labels. So if we click on this plan again, I want to make sure it's still on landscape plan, and it is, and I would also like to lock this. And then I will highlight the labels layer. And this will allow us to add labels without moving the plan as we're working. I would like to label my areas first. And to do this, I'm first going to zoom in a little bit closer by going to View, Zoom In, and then adjust my plan so I can see what I'm doing. Then I can use the Type tool, which is on the left toolbar, and I will click on that. And I like to just type the text that I need off to the left side for now so I can have it all ready. I type in all caps since that's typically the standard in the landscape design industry, but you can do what you would like. Now that I have my area text typed, I'm going to left align them. If you go to Align on the top toolbar and then click on this, then I can move those onto my plan and place them generally where I want them. I can always move them around later. Now I can use leader lines to connect the word to the object. I will use the Line Segment tool and I will click on that and then make the stroke black. And I will keep it at 1 point for now. I think that'll be fine, and I can change it later if I need to. I will create a line and I will hit Shift at the same time so it keeps it perfectly horizontal. And it drew a line. I like to click on the selection tool and click in the gray space off to the side so I can look at that line. It looks pretty good. And I've realized I forgot to turn Smart Guides on. What Smart Guides does is when I draw a line or any kind of object, it'll snap to something else. And in this case, when I draw my lines, which I'll draw my second line segment now for this, it'll snap on the end of the line that I just drew, and that'll be helpful. Sometimes you don't want Smart Guides on, and you'll see that in a little bit, but sometimes it is a benefit to use it. Now I'll just draw the rest of my leader lines to the areas that I want. Okay, Now I have my leader lines drawn. One of the things I do enjoy doing with leader lines is putting a small dot at the end of them to accentuate what they're pointing at. I only do this for area text because it just makes it pop out a little bit more. So I'll do that really quick. I'll use the circle command. I'll hit shift at the same time and just make a very small circle. I have the fill black, and that's what I would like it to be. And this might be a little big, so I can change the size in these two boxes at the top of the toolbar. And I'll make it just a itty bitty bit smaller. That's perfect. And now I will place them on the end of the lines. If you want to copy an object, you can click on the object and go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit Paste again where you want it pasted. Or you can click on the object and hit Alt down at the same time and then move that object. And then once it's placed, you can lift off Alt. There we go. Now we have our leader lines for our areas and we have our text done for our areas. And I actually did turn off the smart guides as I was creating those leader lines because things were snapping to areas I didn't want to. So you'll often see me go back and forth using the smart guides and turning them off and on depending on what I need. Now that we have our area text, we can start labeling our plant materials. I will just use generic names so you can see how I connect the plant groupings and then pull the leader lines out with the plant name to the side of the plan. So once again, I will zoom in and I will go to a grouping of plant materials and I will use the line segment tool once again. And I like to connect all of the plants in the same grouping with one line if possible. Sometimes you can't group everything. And then I also like to not touch the crosshairs when possible. So let's create this first line. I'm going to make it a thinner stroke than the area text. I like to give things a little bit of a hierarchy. Plant labels are typically thinner or smaller, and then area labels are usually thicker and a little more prominent. And I'll change the area text in a little bit to show that. So for the leader lines again, I will use a thinner line. I'm using 0.5 in this case, and I'm connecting each of the crosshairs in the same group. And note again that I'm leaving a small space between the leader line and the crosshair. And sometimes I have to click the selection tool, which is right here in between lines, if lines are wanting to snap to each other. The last line, I'm going to hit shift so it's a perfectly horizontal line. And I have my first set of plant materials connected. Now I can add the plant label next to it. In this case, we have 5 shrubs. And then I can put that word right here. And I will label the rest of the plan here and you can watch me. I'll go through it quickly. And one thing I want you to note is that I like to line up plant text as much as possible to keep it organized. And I prefer not to cross over leader lines. And again, I like to keep everything in all caps. Now that I have it all labeled, I've realized I haven't set a hierarchy with my text. What I'd like to do is bold the area text. I've highlighted all of them by holding the Shift key down at the same time that I've clicked on each one. And now I will click on Bold on my top toolbar. And now they're just a little bit different from everything else. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see that. As I was labeling everything, I used my Shift key a lot to make lines horizontal. Oftentimes I use the Smart Guides when I needed to snap one line to the other, for instance, like these two lines. And then I also use the copy command a lot, and I just copied one to the other, and then I used my Shift key to line them up, and then just went in and edited it with the type tool on the left side. If you're someone that prefers not to hand letter your landscape plans, but you love to have the hand-drawn look, this is a great way to label your drawings quickly, but still have that beautifully rendered drawing.